Joining us now to discuss more is Dr. Amesh Adalja, infectious disease specialist and senior scholar at Johns Hopkins Center for Health Security. Good morning. Thank you for joining us, doctor.
Thanks for having me.
Now, my first question is the FDA thinks the current pediatric sample size is weak, but other experts say the side effects are so rare that expanding the size is not going to help detect it. What's your take on this? Is testing more children worth delaying the vaccine authorization?
I think it's important to remember that for rare side effects, you have to have a big sample size to detect it. And that's why people are asking for a bigger trial size in order to figure out if there are rare side effects that are appearing with some level of frequency. You have to remember that anytime we approve a vaccine for any age group, there's a risk-benefit calculation that has to be undertaken. And the risk is very different for a 5-year-old than it is for a 50-year-old in terms of the risk of COVID being very small to that 5-year-old, but the risk of the risk of the vaccine has to be kind of compared to that. That's what I think you're seeing happening. I think in balance, what you're going to find is that the risk-benefit ratio will likely favor the vaccine in almost all scenarios because these are safe and effective vaccines, and it may end up delaying how long it takes to get to the emergency use approval for this age group. So this is something that's really going to be a contentious debate.
Now, the side effects that are causing the most worry are the ones that lead to the inflammation of the heart or surrounding tissue. How rare is this, and how serious did it get when a child developed such symptoms after getting vaccinated?
So it appears to be something that's fairly rare. There have been reports, though, that probably in the hundreds or so by now of children that have had this. And what we find about these myocarditis cases, they tend to happen in males that are either teenagers or young adults. They tend to be much milder than other cases of myocarditis, meaning they're transient. The people do get hospitalized because we hospitalize everybody usually that has anything wrong with their heart, but they don't seem to be very worrisome. And I think the issue with myocarditis, and I think this is something for the FDA to look into, is this something that could be avoided by doing single doses for younger people? Because we know that from the trial data that single doses work very well in younger individuals. Is that enough in that age group, or could you space the first and second doses of the mRNA vaccines by a longer period of time so that inflammation dampens before the second dose? So there are other ways to do this rather than just thinking about having the standard same dose for children.
Just for context, could you tell me how much better it is for a child to have the single dose compared to an adult who just gets one single dose?
We don't have strong data, but if you look at the clinical trial data that was used to approve the vaccine in children, they had very high efficacy results after just one dose. And there is some argument that their immune systems are robust enough that one dose might be sufficient. Obviously, you want to test that in the real world to see, but it's one hypothesis out there. And I know that there are some of my colleagues who have children that are spacing the first and second doses in younger boys to avoid that myocarditis risk. So there's a lot of different ways to approach this, but what needs to be done is it has to be something that's data-driven and that we have clinical trial data to back up our decisions.
Now, will Pfizer and Moderna be able to complete their expanded trials and get authorized by the time kids go back to school? What does the timeline look like for them?
I don't really think there's going to be any way that we have an approval below the age of 12 years before school starts, which some schools are going back in a couple of weeks. For example, in Georgia, they go back in the first week of August. So the timeline is likely to be late fall, early winter for when that emergency use approval for that younger age group is available.
Now, although these side effects are very rare, and I want to say very rare again for those listening, it's not very encouraging for those who are vaccine hesitant or those who are vaccine hesitant for their child. So what would you say to those parents who are worried about getting their children vaccinated because of this news?
I would say that when you look at it on balance, weighing the risks against the benefits, the vaccines are going to come out ahead because this is a very rare side effect. It seems to be something that is transient, something that is mild, that can be easily treated, easily recognized. And you have to remember right now, we have tens of thousands of cases going on with the Delta variant, a more contagious variant that is really preying on the unvaccinated. So if your child is unvaccinated, they're at risk for the Delta variant. And while they may not become dangerously ill with COVID-19, it's a disruptive event for them. It's something that you can avoid with a simple and easy vaccine.
So how significant are these pediatric vaccines in terms of achieving herd immunity?
Well, the higher the population level that's immunized, the closer we get to herd immunity. Herd immunity is going to be very difficult to get with a virus like this, especially with its more contagious variants, but it will push us closer to that. But to me, it's not always been about herd immunity. It's been about removing the ability of the virus to cause serious disease, hospitalization, and death. And that's primarily achieved through vaccinating high-risk individuals like the elderly, those with comorbid conditions, nursing home residents. So I think we're on that path already in many parts of the United States where cases have been decoupled from hospitalizations and deaths. But the more immunity we have in the population, the less disruptive COVID-19 is to us as a society as a whole.
Dr. Amesh Adalja, infectious disease specialist and senior scholar at Johns Hopkins Center for Health and Security. I appreciate you coming here and helping us understand this a little better.